5 more motorcycle rider types, and one of them is going to explain a choice you made about your own bike that you never really explained to anyone, maybe not even yourself. If you watch the first video, you know the setup. 5 bikes, 1 gas station. You don't need to have seen it to follow this one, and if you haven't, stick around because it's probably waiting for you right after this one. The first 5 types were the loud, obvious reasons: stress, belonging, solitude, intensity, a second chance at an old self. These next 5 are quieter. They rarely come up in a 5-minute conversation at a gas pump. They show up in what a rider does when nobody is filming. Type 6, the freedom rider. The 6th type does not necessarily hate their job. They hate not choosing. Somewhere between an alarm clock, a manager who reschedules the same meeting twice, and a calendar that fills itself in without asking, this rider lost the one thing they actually needed: a say in their own day. Psychologists have a name for this. It is called self-determination theory, built around 3 basic needs: a sense of control over your own choices, feeling capable at something, and feeling connected to other people. Studies done inside real workplaces keep landing on the same result. When people lose that sense of control, stress climbs and satisfaction drops, no matter how good the paycheck is. On a bike, every choice sits back in your hands: which lane, which gear, which road, and whether to turn left just because the sign looked interesting. Nobody assigns this rider a route. Nobody loops them in on the plan. One large workplace study tracked employees over several months and found that the ones who felt boxed in by their schedule reported noticeably higher day-to-day stress, even when their job title and paycheck stayed exactly the same. Losing control turned out to matter more than losing money. This is not the reset rider from the first video. The reset rider is trying to quiet a loud mind. The freedom rider is not loud inside. They are simply tired of someone else holding the wheel of their own life, and a motorcycle happens to be the most literal way to take it back. Type 7, the craftsman rider. The 7th type is the one you will find in the garage at 11 at night, not because anything is broken, but because it could run a little smoother. This is not really about the ride, it is about getting one specific detail exactly right. Researchers who study skill and expertise found something years ago that surprised a lot of people. Real mastery does not come from doing something a lot. It comes from doing it slightly wrong, noticing precisely how, and correcting that one detail over and over. Some call this deliberate practice, and it works the same way whether you are a surgeon, a musician, or someone leaning a bike through the same corner for the 10th time, trying to shave one small mistake off the line. This rider is not chasing a thrill. They are chasing the feeling of a task carried out with zero wasted motion. The same mental state researchers who study flow describe. Effort and skill lining up so evenly that self-consciousness just disappears. Talk to this rider about their bike, and they won't talk about how it makes them feel. They'll talk about the 2 millimeters they adjusted last weekend. That's not them avoiding the emotional question. For this rider, the precision is the emotional answer. This is different from the edge rider from the first video. The edge rider's focus sharpens when the risk goes up. The craftsman's focus sharpens when the margin for error gets smaller, whether or not there's any risk involved. Type 8, the nostalgia rider. The 8th type is riding a bike that's not really about this decade at all. Maybe it's the same model their father rode. Maybe it's the bike they couldn't afford at 22 and finally bought at 50. Either way, this rider is chasing a feeling, not a destination. For a long time, nostalgia had a poor reputation in psychology, treated almost like a symptom to manage. Newer research flipped that completely. Studies out of several universities now show that reflecting on meaningful memories lifts mood, eases loneliness, and strengthens a person's sense that their life actually adds up to something. One psychologist who has studied this for more than 2 decades found that nostalgia doesn't just comfort people, it makes them more hopeful about what's still ahead. In lab experiments, people who spent a few minutes recalling a meaningful memory reported feeling less lonely afterward than people who thought about an ordinary recent event, even though nothing about their actual day had changed. That's the part that tends to surprise people. This rider is not stuck in the past. The old memory is doing something forward-facing, reminding them who they were before life got complicated so they can carry that person into whatever comes next. This sits close to the second act rider from the first video, but it's not the same thing. The second act rider is returning to a paused identity. The nostalgia rider is holding an actual memory, sometimes literally, in the shape of a machine that used to belong to someone they loved. Type 9, the Guardian Rider. The ninth type organizes the group ride nobody thanks them for organizing. They check tire pressure on a friend's bike before a long trip without being asked. In almost every riding group, there is one person quietly making sure everyone gets home. That is this rider. There is a real psychological reward behind this, and it is not subtle. Researchers have documented something they call the helper's high, a genuine lift in mood and even physical health that shows up after people help someone else, not themselves. Separate research on adults in midlife and beyond points to a specific drive psychologists call generativity, the need to guide, protect, or give something back to the people coming up behind you. People who act on that drive consistently report higher life satisfaction than people who ignore it. For this rider, the bike is almost secondary. What they actually love is the role: road captain, safety check, the one who rides at the back so nobody gets left behind. It is not about control, it is care that happens to be wearing a leather jacket. This is not the same as the Brotherhood rider from the first video. The Brotherhood rider needs the group to feel like they belong. The Guardian rider needs the group to be safe and would probably keep checking everyone's tires even if nobody ever rode with them again. If you have ever wondered why one person in your riding group always knows everyone's plans, their tire brand, and their kid's name, this is why. They are not being nosy. They are doing the thing that makes them happiest, which is making sure everyone else is okay. Type 10, the Courage Rider. The 10th type is the one that surprises people most, because on paper they should not be riding at all. This rider was scared of motorcycles. Maybe they still are, a little, every single time they swing a leg over the seat. Psychologists who study courage found something that cuts against the popular idea of bravery. Courage was never about the absence of fear. Nearly every definition researchers actually use requires the fear to be there first. Courage is what happens when someone takes on a real risk, on purpose, for a reason that matters to them while still feeling afraid. Take the fear away and it stops being courage, it's just a normal Tuesday. Some researchers have found that people who repeatedly act despite fear start handling stress differently over time, almost as if the brain builds a calmer response to threat the more it practices staying steady under pressure. This rider is not the edge rider from the first video. The edge rider's mind goes quiet and sharp under pressure, like the risk was built for them. This rider's heart is still pounding at the first stoplight. They ride anyway, not because the fear disappears, but because riding through it, on purpose, again and again, taught them something a calm moment never could, that they are capable of more than the fear tried to convince them of. That, more than any of the other 9, might be the most honest reason anyone ever gets on a bike. 10 types now, 10 completely different reasons to end up standing in the same parking lot. Control, precision, memory, care for other people, and the simple, quiet decision to keep showing up scared anyway. If none of the first 5 fit, and one of these 5 just described you a little too accurately, you're not alone. Most riders are a mix of 2 or 3, not just 1. So which one are you this time? Tell us in the comments. And if you skipped the first video, it's a fast watch right after this one, because the other 5 types are probably standing in your riding group.